Okay.
Good morning. I guess it's morning over there. It's early evening
It's a
over
sunny
here.
morning. Yeah, beautiful sunny morning, very windy.
I see.
And we turned the heating on for the first time yesterday.
So let me, I guess I'm going to go through the book in the order that it's written and ask you some questions. But first of all, before we even get to the poems, it says, "For all the adolescents I have taught over the years, may your rapturous moments be many and survive unclobbered." And you have a quote from Alan Garner after that. But what made you think, what's the thinking behind this? Rapturous moments survive unclobbered.
Well, I think the book should have the original quote from Alan Garner.
It does.
Which I vaguely remember. I remember many, many, many years ago. I think I discovered Alan Garner's children's books, really, but they are quite sophisticated. And in an interview, he said that something along the lines, because I don't think I got exactly the quote I remember, was that adolescence or your teens were actually the peak of your development.
Right.
And we see it generally as a stage before you become a proper adult. But he thought that, in fact, that was the moment when you were full, well, you had your potential, and there was all that potential. But that unfortunately the world tend to clobber the results of that potential. I wanted to dedicate it anyway to the students, because previous books I've dedicated to Gareth and my children, and because the other big thing in my life was the teaching. So yes. I knew I wanted to dedicate it to the students, and that was a way in.
I see. The title of the book is, it's not rapturous rapture, it's modest rapture. There is some hesitation. It's not rapture with complete abandon. Any reason for that?
Oh, yes. The title was really a mistake. I was flicking through Twitter and came across this competition. And I like entering competitions. That's how I got. That's how I got published in the first place, was winning a competition.
Wow!
And the competition was set out on Twitter, and it said that they were giving us a prompt, a sort of a hint of what the poem should be about. And the hint I got was rapture. And then I switched Twitter off and started thinking about rapture. However, had I carried on reading, I would have realized that the other prompts were to do with Jim Morrison and the Doors from the 1960s.
Right.
I missed that out. So I was just stuck with rapture. And originally I thought, well, gosh, the only thing I can think of is the statue of Saint Teresa, which was carved by Bernini, of the nun collapsed. There's an angel by her side about to stab her with his fiery sword, and she is collapsed, experiencing, I think the title of the statue is The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Look the statue up, because it's quite famous for the look on her face when she's experiencing ecstasy. So I looked up, I thought, right, what else can I find out about rapture? And all the synonyms were, I thought, basically not British enough. If you look up rapture, the synonyms are over the top. Things like ecstasy, euphoria, elation, exaltation, rhapsody. And when I looked at these words, I thought, well, that's a bit much. I don't think I can have any understanding of that. So I decided to make them more modest.
I see.
Smaller. And so, in fact, what I'm saying there is that I don't experience rapture in the full sense, but there are little raptures every day, like finding some wind-bitten primroses under a tree,
I
or
see.
like the lovely feeling of being bare-legged in the summer.
Right.
So that's why they're modest raptures.
I
The
see.
rapture was,
So finding joy in the little things is perhaps
yes,
what you're. But it also gave me a glimpse of perhaps a process for writing poetry. You take a prompt and then you look for associations. Is that how
you
the other
can.
poems came about?
Well, some, and some came about because something happened. In the one about the ash tree and the woodpecker, that actually
Right.
happened. I found this woodpecker trying to get into the house. I've even got photographs of the woodpecker trying to get into the house and kneeling down while it was unconscious, probably concussed. That happened.
I guess you're looking at the woodpecker, the colors of danger, red, black, and white, a feathered clot lumped on the doorstep, a bird slumped and still, its eyes clenched tight.
It had flown into the window
I
and
see.
knocked itself out, which often happens.
Right.
So I don't know why I brought the tree into it. I mean, there is a tree that I described. It did have a broken bough that hung from it for 2 years, and then it fell off. And for some reason, which I can't remember, I decided to bring the tree that I'd originally thought was a stately oak. Actually, it was just the communal garden ash.
Right.
And I thought it was dead, but it was late. The rhyme at the top is uh, what do I called it?
Oak before ash, in for a splash.
Ash
Oak.
before oak, in for a soak. It's
Oh,
a rhyme which you
I see.
say about the weather, so that if the oak in the spring
Yes.
goes into leaf before the ash, it's going to be a certain amount of rain,
Right.
and if it's the other way around, it's still going to bloody rain.
I see you've done this a couple of times. You take a phrase and then you sort of give us both the literal meaning and also the what it's meant to mean. So I'll give you another example. Your number 3 in the list is throwing shade.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's a clever little title, but you're actually talking about literally throwing shade. Dumbstruck by
Yes.
January, its tepid hours of daylight, the yews still cast their shadows, though nothing else does. Late afternoon, the lights on, yews still throw shade at me, my silent communion with trees like green moonlight.
Yes. What happened there was I wanted to write about the big yew trees that are outside the front of the house and sort of frame the view. And I noticed one winter's day that in some bizarre way, without any sun in the sky to be seen, there was a shadow under the yew trees. They actually seemed to cast a shadow, which I thought was worth writing a poem about
Right.
because it's strange. But when I got to the second bit, I thought, well, I can't say cast a shadow again. So I came up with the phrase, which I thought was original, throwing shade.
Right.
Simply, but then I was told that actually it did have another meaning. If I was more in touch with the youth, I'd know that it had a different meaning. So that gave me the end of the poem.
Let's take something which is seemingly quite mundane, which is taking down the Christmas tree. And you said the baubles have survived intact. They'll outlast me as they did my mother. And then you say, I dream of daffodils carelessly jugged on my kitchen table, trying to remember their yellow fragrance, but the spice of needles intervenes. Are you, do you not like winter? Are you always yearning for spring and summer?
Yes, you
Is
could
that fair
guess
to
that
say?
from the. That's fair to say. Yes, I find Christmas, the long sort of 10 days of Christmas celebrations, they're always a bit exhausting. And I'm always thinking, well, once Christmas is out of the way, we can look forward to spring. So taking getting rid of Christmas on 12th night is always slightly satisfying for me, because I think, right, that's done and dusted. We can now start thinking about planting seeds or seeing if the bulbs have come up. And that's what I mean by I dream of daffodils. I'd rather have a big bunch of the earliest spring flowers on my kitchen table than this twinkly Christmas tree. And I have to wait, because even the smell of the Christmas tree is still there.
The one that's titled Bare Ruined Choirs, after Sonnet 73 Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful poem just in terms of the rhyme and the rhythm of it, and the bit in the middle. Old associations have passed, our recollections become a threat. Each timid bulb a reprimand, a harbinger of a new regret. What's going on here?
What's going on?
You're out on a walk, I imagine, holding hands.
Basically, it's about, I suppose, it's allowing there to be some mention of global warming and the change to the climate. And anyone here can see that it's different from the way it was some years ago. So, for example, the seasons get slightly mixed up at the moment, so that instead of the snowdrops being the very, very first flowers to appear in spring, something's changed, and the daffodils come up first. All things like the country law that you learn, like the rhyme, oak before ash, in for a splash. These old associations no longer make sense, because the climate is changing. So the seasons are changing. So we've just had a heat wave last week in October, for example. That's not what should happen. So the old associations have passed. Our belief, knowledge that the snowdrops are the first flowers is no longer true. And that, yes, each timid bulb a reprimand. What did I mean there? Yeah, we now have new regrets about what's happening as we go for walks in the countryside, because it's changing with global warming.
I see. Wow, I would never have guessed. No, it's great. I was thinking there may have been something more personal, but actually I'm going to use it now as a climate change poem, because
that's
now
what I was getting at, really. Seasons merge is the last word, because they're not quite, winter isn't as cold as it used to be. The summer is hotter than it used to be. So seasons merge. I guess what you said about Singapore not having the seasons make probably this book of poems completely unreadable.
Or actually extremely, an object of extreme curiosity, because people have visited the UK and they've seen the extremes of weathers, and I think there's a charm in that, and so it's beautiful from that point of view.
The poem is following Shakespeare's verse form. I mean, to a certain extent. You said it is a Shakespearean sonnet, and he does have in that sonnet the reference to bare ruined choirs.
Yes, a sonnet for climate change.
Well, sort of.
Let's talk about the one after that, A Long March. Once again, a bit of a word play in the title. I assume this is during COVID.
Indeed.
Okay. March is the cruelest month.
It's taking T.S. Eliot's poem "The Wasteland." The first phrase is "April is the cruelest month."
Yes.
So take me and said, "No, it's not. March is."
Right. Winter's back is not yet broken. Bulbs thrust through cracks in the bomb-blasted soil. Bodies remain unburied. And I can see the allusions to COVID Last March, we thought we'd come through it, double jabbed. We burst our bubbles, recklessly visited garden centers. 2 lines of red, not yet blood. I assume that's the COVID test, the 2 lines of red.
Yeah.
Avoid the news, plant seeds, dig our bits of garden. We are locked down by fear, so the future darkens.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so it is COVID.
Oh yes,
and it's a recording of that.
Yes, we were. I think one Christmas we were told by Boris that we had to not have Christmas. We couldn't have more than normal people in your house, and he talked about having we should live in a bubble. The double jabbed, that was when we'd had our second injection, especially if we're old. Yes. So we thought we're okay. The recklessly visiting garden centres. Well, I mean, that's what old people do. And we thought we were safe. But no, two lines of red.
Yes. Did you catch COVID, or is it just describing?
I've had it. I've had it once, Gareth, but that was later. Gareth got it. He went to watch rugby, foolish man. And he brought home his version of COVID. But I mean, it wasn't too bad. By that time, we'd had our jabs.
Right. The next one is a curlew creeps. And well, firstly, the first couple of lines, a curlew creeps across the lawn, bent beak too big for its bulk. But you also ask, what season is this? And I can't tell, is it autumn or winter?
Who knows? Okay. It was, again, based on an actual sighting. I mean, curlews used to be quite common birds, but I asked an audience how many of them had actually seen a physical curlew, and only about a third of them had. 2/3 of them had never seen the bird. So when I saw this bird walking on the lawn, I was quite excited because it was the first time I'd ever seen one. They have a long bent beak. They have great long legs. They're an unusual bird. But what I suppose I should have made clearer is that at the time it was snow was everywhere, ice. There'd been an almighty frost. Right. So there was a white background. Ice was everywhere. The trees were covered in the most amazing hoarfrost, and this poor starving bird was trying desperately to get some sustenance out of a crack in the wall. And then what season is this? It's, I suppose, the fact that the birds were eating windfalls, that's apples on the ground, even though we were in the middle of winter. Just a confusion of the seasons. Yes. Again, something not right. And that bird wasn't right. And sure enough, the next day I found it dead.
Oh.
But that's not in the poem.
Okay. Wow. So it drills its bill into the wall's crevices, so cold to eat stone.
That's my comment. I'm watching it, trying to find some insects, I guess, by sticking this long beak into the cracks of the wall. Yes. And the comment of the observer is, it must be so cold.
Right.
The bird.
Okay. If I take another one, this one's titled The Cliff Edge. Siren blares. Someone has cancelled their tomorrows. The cliff path cleared of brambles for a spring that he will never see. 17 summers sufficed, it seems.
It's just, I heard the sirens, so I knew that there obviously had been some sort of mishap in the area, because you could hear the sirens, probably of an ambulance, maybe of the Coast Guard. You know what the cliff path's like.
Yes.
You do. And I'm sure you've heard of the occasional jumper, the occasional suicide. And this is just talking about one of those occasions when I probably heard the aftermath of somebody jumping off the cliff. So not a very cheerful one.
Yes. The later on, number 14, it's called Senseless.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's related, or is it a similar story? Or is it something you're looking back on? You left several years ago. It's cold where you are. The stars are ice.
It's about loss, basically. I'm going to sort of spoil things now by saying that originally, when I started to write a poem, I wanted to write about the fact that I have lost my sense of smell. And this has made... so I started to write thinking I was going to write about what it's like to suddenly lose one of your senses. And then, of course, I thought, well, that's a horrible thing to write about. I don't want to write about my nose. So it turned into a more general comment about loss. I mean, any loss. It could be a breakup of a marriage, any loss.
Okay.
Is what it's about.
There's a line in there. It says, it goes as a rusty growl of lawnmowers permeates the air, a bass note to accompany bird song. And then in another one, which is what I wanted to talk about, another poem, which is A Place Where Echoes Rebound. You say, as if the player had, with rare compassion, altered the tune to a major key. So there is this almost a background score in some of your poems, whether it's birds singing, some visible, some not visible, some visible but not making any sound. But this I felt, again, I could relate to. You have a bass note and everything else is on top of that. Could we talk about that poem, A Place Where Echoes Rebound?
Yeah. I hadn't noticed that. Thank you for pointing out to me the imagery. I mean, that you don't notice what you're doing
really?
to any extent. You might think you're doing one thing, but of course, once you write it and somebody reads it, it becomes a different poem, which is great. That's what poetry does. An echo is a rebounding, but of course, you could get two echoes. So what did I? Here's drift. The echoes rebound. It's about how originally it's about how music brings back memories. Right. So that, let's say I was sitting in the kitchen and the radio was on and it plays something by Crowded House, and immediately I find myself back in I think it's the early 90s, when I was playing this particular record quite a lot, and we were living at Pool House in the college, etc., etc. How music brings it all back. So sometimes you can relive a second time, a second experience, and it's music that is that makes this happen. That was the origin of it.
Beautiful. Can I tell you, my year group in Atlantic College, we only recently came together on a WhatsApp group, and one of the things that's happening now is they're creating a playlist of music that we used to listen to at that time, because every song brings back vivid memories of what we did at that time. That's
right. And that's what...
I see. Echoes rebound. So now it makes complete sense to me. Years drift untethered until you find a place where echoes rebound, where music sounds as if the player had, with rare compassion, altered the tune to a major key. The past repeats, the season, not the tumult. That spring long ago is still happening now, will always be in blossom when this song is sung. That spring will always be in blossom when this song is sung.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
occasionally a memory will bring back, music will bring back a memory, which is unusually, if I was feeling a bit depressed, is unusually positive.
Yes.
It's as if the piano player has changed the key. The first three lines, after a fall, implies that there are also unpleasant things that happen to you in life. And then years drift untethered. You haven't got any connection or any security. But sometimes, she says, being miserable, sometimes it's better. It's positive. It's not negative. It's a major key, not a minor key. That makes sense.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. Are you all right to go on a little bit longer, or?
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a retired woman now.
Thank you. So twilight. Twilight is colored with shades of memory. It breeds anticipation each spring when it arrives. I assume this is fairly literal. You're watching, the twilight extend itself a little bit because winter is going away and the days are getting a bit longer. And then the last bit, when does this half-light merge with night? How long does it last? One window says now, another says not yet. Time to cook supper, then sit round the table, and still we have not needed to pull down the blinds. Is it just meant to be as functional and mundane as that, or is there something else? Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. I was pleased with capturing something that you don't necessarily notice. When spring gets going, you suddenly realize that it's still light and it's 7 o'clock. It's still light and it's 8 o'clock. And it's quite exciting, but it's something you don't necessarily stop and think about. And
right.
I felt that I wanted to stop and think about it. And what a wonderful thing this light is. It brings back, rather like the music, it brings back all your memories of summer. And you think, oh yes, I remember light evenings. And it's a particular, it changes sound. It does. I think I was just trying to find exactly what the experience of twilight is. And one of the things it does is to alter sound, so that when it is twilight, things sound sharper outside, clearer outside. But exactly when does this twilight turn into darkness? Well, it's difficult to pin down, but it gets twilight, the light evenings get longer and longer.
Yes, and it pairs very well. I think it rhymes almost with the other poem you have, Summer Solstice, where it's the other end of the spectrum, I guess. There is a bit where you say, sky still radiant as I go to bed, the windows groan as I heave them open, woken by murmurs from a martin's nest. I'm folded in light, there has been no night. It's been, a very, very long day and a very early morning, so it's summer solstice, I guess, the longest day. And there's a very nice contrast to the other very short days.
Yeah, indeed. It is. But the awful thing is, there's a family joke always the day after the summer solstice. Gareth will come into the bedroom and say, the nights are drawing in. Because, of course, once you get to the solstice, damn it, the sun is going to change direction, and it's going to creep now towards the winter solstice.
Right.
So
that's the peak.
That's the peak.
All Saints Day, perhaps you'd like to tell us a bit about that? What's going on here?
I think quite a lot of my poems don't mean anything or don't say anything. They are just observations. What I want to do is to capture a moment, freeze it. I mean, even as a teenager, that's what I wanted to do by writing, was to catch in my hand almost a particular moment and capture it, freeze it, stop it.
Yes.
And so All Saints' Day is simply a description in as much detail and as much sensuous detail as I can manage to describe a particular morning. And of course, All Saints' Day is now. I mean, it's the last day of October. Otherwise known as Halloween.
Yes.
But
again, it's description, but amazing description. So we wake to altered horizons until the sun breaks through the mist. Trees rise like rusty shipwrecks at low tide, trimmed by ribbons of gulls. Surprised by light, this house is an island. Only the pulse of a distant foghorn swells through the watery silence. Later on, you say the garden is a riot of indecision. I laughed a bit to myself when I read that. Is it because it's
doesn't know whether to give up and die or whether it can keep going for another week or two?
The garden is a riot of indecision. Two more. Number 20, it's Razzle Dazzle.
Oh, yeah.
Is this also descriptive and we should not read anything into it? Or should we?
Oh, I think you can read. It starts with joy. The movement, the wind of the summer, the sunny. It's about a windy summer's day, just a description, but it's joyous because of the rhythm I've given it. Sunshine shatters leaves like glass, light splinters rust and rattle. Sorry, I can't read without the glasses. Start again. Hold on. So, sunshine shatters leaves like glass, like splinters, rush and rattle, bang the blinds and slam the doors. Dancing trees twirl beaded skirts, gardens clatter, seem bedazzled. Air is curdled, thick with bird noise. Swoop and dart, I'm buzzed by swallows. Joy.
Lots of energy.
And energy. But how to catch and how record this joy of living, knowing only may my time be done. Implication that maybe I haven't got that many more. Not I mean the speaker in the poem. And then beauty hurts, youth absconds. Dazzled eyes still search for more. But then something's wrong. I'm out of time. And I suppose you would say there's a pun. I change the rhythm starts to go wrong. Maybe I'm out of time. Or when I say it's not me particularly. Right. And also I was fascinated by words. I was looking for words with Zs. There aren't many.
Right.
So we've got razzle, we've got bedazzled, we've got buzzed,
razzmatazz, chutzpah.
Razzmatazz.
I see. Lots of Zs.
It's just fun.
Well, there is a buzz to it, I guess. It's a very positive buzz to that. And maybe the last one is Women Everywhere. Number 22.
Yeah.
Since you read the previous one, would you mind reading this as well, please? That was lovely.
Okay. Women sit with bowls on their laps. It's a sitting job for women everywhere. Many are on the bare floor, cross-legged, or with one leg tucked under, or perched on a kitchen chair. My homegrown harvest is a luxury. I'm filling my freezer with unnecessary beans, de-stringing them, slicing them, shelling them, blanching them. As I pack my domestic beans in plastic, I'm connected to women everywhere who sort with stiff fingers, pound and grind. That's just a trick of my pampered mind. This time of year, you end up with a glut of something you've grown in the garden, and we had a glut of runner beans. And what can you do with them? Freeze them. that takes ages. Bloody runner beans, you've got to take the rind off, you've got to blanch them. And of course, it's unnecessary. I don't need to grow my own beans to survive. But, well, I'd like to think that I'm one of the sisters. Women everywhere at this moment are doing something domestic with bowls on their laps. So they're not that unnecessary. I'm one of the sisterhood, but stupid cow. I mean, of course you're not. You don't need these luxurious beans.
Do you have a favorite in this book?
Yeah, several. But I'll say the last. I'll say the last one, Findings, because it's different from all the others. It's indoors. It happens to be my sister and I, and she's an artist. She crafts, and it took me about 10 minutes to write, sitting at the table, watching her crafting, playing with the things. And I was fascinated by what she makes from stacking pots glinting with crystal, remnants of silk from saris, embroidery hoops. She's even got a basket which is filled with thimbles. She makes things. And she's in her house, jewel-coloured insects alight on her walls, paper birds perch on her windows. She's made all these things. And the cover is actually taken from that, so that these are the things that are mentioned in that poem. Yes. That was, I think, a dead twig with a bit of lichen. I think some of the thimbles definitely, and the beetles are things taken from that poem. So.
But it's not just descriptions. I mean, each word is highly descriptive, very, I would have thought, carefully chosen. Some of them are hyphenated, yes. Sari, silk, jewel-coloured. But you're saying it came to you quite naturally and quickly?
Yes. But it was just, I mean, she was, I went to stay with her. We were sitting around the table. She got out lots of things to sort of turn into something. It might be sewing, it might be embroidery, it might be painting, it might be making things with paper. And I was sitting there trying to write poetry. And I thought, well, I can describe what she's doing.
Yes.
And I did. And that's it.
And you end with, what to call them? She denies her art, says they are trinkets, found objects, found things. In the end, we agree on findings.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ellie. That was an amazing treat. Really appreciate your time. And yes, I wish you all the best. Is there another one coming? Another collection?
Well, I've got, at the moment, there's one already out. And that is very definitely this area. It's a photograph taken from the bottom of my garden, looking across to the other side. So that's out there.
What's it called?
That's called Ticking.
Ticking.
T-I-C-K. Ticking.
Ticking. Got it.
That's, you might like that because you would actually recognize the particular places.
Right.
I can send you a copy of that. It's a pamphlet. It's got about 4 poems in it. And but you won't be able to get that. I can send that to you if you want.
Okay. Thank you. Or I will come and pick it up next time I'm there. And I will be sharing the video also with, I'm sure, alumni of Atlantic College. So if there's a message for them you'd like to give,
keep the faith, I think would be the comment.
Okay. But thank you again, Ellie. All the best, and I will see you soon.
Right.
Take care. Bye-bye.